And board members, Mr. Grant, Ms. Ressler, we have until 3 p.m. at the latest because we have a time certain hearing that we have at 3 p.m. So, board members, anything that you have right now that you,
No,
any more questions?
Ms. Ressler's gonna bring me a picture, and everything will be explained, and that'll be fine. I need her picture.
About the money.
Exactly. Bottom line.
And Wes is going to give us all of those things that Bill said he has.
Yeah, you can call and ask, or I mean, I have a copy of the master agreement right here. I mean, I can make copies and I'll make copies onto a CD. I'm not gonna print out,
No.
I'll
Why don't you leave one copy?
But so you know, we do have an account at Office Max. If you want to put together packets of the written documents, we can have things made up, whatever you folks want.
whatever you want.
One copy of the written document upstairs.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Thank you. You can have it.
Okay, board members, I think we, am I correct, Mr. Bradshaw, though you need some direction at this point? Did you want to ask what direction that is?
Can I ask one more question before we ask the direction? Because Sandra Monahan was behind you, and of course we can't speak into we don't have public speaking at these meetings. So if the relationship that you have with the charitable foundation in these documents that we're going to look at, is that a set agreement that we don't have to worry about anything with working with the charitable foundation and the funds that are transferred to them?
Okay, let me be.
Because I thought that was some contentious headlines a little while ago
No,
too.
it's only contentious for those that want to make it contentious. It's not really contentious, it's already black and white.
Okay, it is black and white.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the answer.
And in anticipation of that, this is okay, in our agreement with the charitable foundation, the Citrus County Hospital Board has a seat of 1 of 11. That seat will go away, and in this negotiation, we can talk about whether the school board wants to be on it or not. It's up to you. But at the end of the day, it's going to be vacant one way or the other. So we would have to go back. The only inclination they would have would be to do that. I think what some others might think about is there was a situation where there were assertions that were made that something that we're contemplating doing is not appropriate or legal. Ma'am, I would not be here if I did not believe that. I don't believe that Representative Masulo or Senator Simpson or others in the community would be on board with this and considering. Remember, we're doing due diligence. I know that your attorney, who I've known for many years, will do your due diligence and come back to you. So at the end of the day, all those things are to be negotiated, and anything you hear, I want you to be sure, clearly is an issue that can be easily overcome if there is really an issue to begin with. Now, finally, the charitable foundation every 2 years elects someone from the public at large for a 4-year term. In this particular case, I know there were 3 or 4 candidates that ran last time, and Ms. DeMayo won. And I know Ms. Moylan was not elected in the last election. No, it only be
Brown? Was
No.
He ran.
against. That's right.
And he was elected, wasn't he?
No, he was not.
Okay.
He was one of the candidates, ma'am.
Mr. Mayo was, okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayo won that election. I know that Mr. Gudis and Ms. Moylan had appeared at the Citrus County Commission meeting where I was sitting, talking about that $8 or $9 million. Well, the same thing I told the county commission, I tell the school board. That money is not going to the charitable foundation. That money was designated for another purpose. And it was agreed on with the legislative delegation and contemplated, and we have documents from the 2004 transaction where we did a CPA who ran the numbers to figure out what we were going to need over the life of a 75-year lease, and I'm going to give that to your attorney. So everything that we're talking about, with all due respect, has been carefully contemplated, not just by me and others, people in Tallahassee, experts in the field, law firms in Orlando. So this is not something that we've ever taken lightly. When we're dealing with the taxpayers' money and assets, the trustees are very serious, just like you are, with how you do your due diligence. So whatever you're told, I will appreciate. please convey any of those questions or concerns if that person gets you to have such a thing to Mr. Bradshaw, and I'll be glad to address it in a memo if it need be. But I'm telling you that you can,
In the future, though, that relationship with the foundation financially is
when you say
pretty well
foundation, I
set.
think you mean charitable foundation.
Charitable foundation, yeah, not the foundation, the
Right.
original. But that's pretty well set in formulaics, that they get so much money out of these proceeds that will.
No, they're going to get no money out of those proceeds. They will only get the money from the indemnification.
Okay,
That's it, ma'am.
okay, so it's in writing,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
okay.
And remember, it can be changed at the complete discretion of the Citrus County Hospital Board of Trustees, who have elected not to do so, and to make sure that money is in fact conveyed to the charitable foundation, including the 2.8 million that we should be getting from CMS that will also go to the charitable foundation because it deals with insurance companies and indemnification.
When is that supposed to roughly happen? Is there-
Definitely by the anniversary of the 7th year anniversary. I wish it, I'm setting a conference call with them to discuss the second anniversary payment and the other money that was withheld that I think now can be conveyed. So we're doing that with them. But I want to answer one more, fully answer. I only said approximately 30, they have about 10 million now, the charitable foundation, and there's 20.7 million in the indemnification fund right now. I expect most, if not all of that money to be conveyed. Okay? Because there's a negotiation, we have a Blue Cross Blue Shield for like 200 grand. That's ongoing to save 900,000. But there's a pension escrow. When the pension is done and the proceeds we get back from the pension, the trustees have indicated they intend to provide that money as well to the charitable foundation. But all this will be done before any agreement is memorialized with any third entity to take our responsibility.
So Bill,
Oh, that's an excellent point. In the interim, every quarter, the Citrus County Hospital Board conveys all the interest from those multi-million-dollar escrow accounts to the charitable foundation, which has been a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest. Almost $1 million in interest that's already been conveyed. That was negotiated by the trustees when we did this deal, was all interest from those escrows go to the charitable foundation. Which meant two things. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Which meant two things, right? It meant that it never put the pressure on the trustees, HCA, or the foundation for conveying the money, because how was the charitable foundation going to get any money if it was going to sit in these two escrow? So we negotiated that the interest would always go to the charitable foundation, which is how they began their operations.
so at the end of the day, we won't have any obligations to the charitable foundation.
Only those you decide to have.
Okay.
In other words,
No legal obligation.
no legal right now there are bylaw obligations that say the Citrus County Hospital Board must approve things over 250,000, and you have a right to sit at the board and they can't change that. Well, we'll negotiate those things out or in or whatever you want. I would do away with them because at this point, the charitable foundation is good. You have to understand the genesis of why it was there to begin with. We were dealing with a foundation that didn't share the same values of the Citrus County Hospital Board, so we memorialized certain parameters that everyone had to follow. This charitable foundation is outstanding. I mean, Dr. Desai, Dr. Grace, Tito from the Health Center, the Citrus Sonia Award from the college, Jimmy T. Smith County Commissioner, Debbie Russler, Citrus County Hospital Board, Sophie Fonseca, and I know Dr. Wallace was on. I mean, this is a board of professionals that we no longer have to worry about the politicalization.
So I've got a quick question though, just so I understand, on the foundation, not the charitable
Yes, sir.
foundation, but the foundation.
Yes, sir.
When, or what power do they have now, and when will that cease, or when will they cease to exist?
The foundation, they exist for legal reasons. They are the ones that have the standing to bring suit against Aon because they're the party in interest. And they were the holders of the provider number of indemnification. Indemnification is much easier because the hospital board did agreements of assignment. Can't really do that legally. We have to stay them as a fiduciary. So they are a separate entity. They have no authority regarding this matter at all. In fact, they will, in my opinion, also be dissolved way before we are. As soon as the pension lawsuit is over, it's my opinion that the foundation will dissolve, because they have standing. They're the ones bringing the suit on behalf of the taxpayers of Citrus County.
In the pension trust fund or the fund, you all put extra money, that's what you just referenced a minute ago, right? Anything left over after the pension suit is over is gonna go to the charitable foundation. Is that what?
Yes, sir. It will.
And just to piggyback.
Now, let me be real clear. I'm sorry, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
The answer is yes right now, because that's what the hospital board of trustees said, but their only promise that they made was the indemnification money, not the pension money. Although they have said they intend to give that to them.
Right, I got you.
But as far as what is a certain is the indemnification money. Couple $1 million is in the pension account.
We tend to think of things trying to be equitable, so I'm asking this question under that, trying to have that understanding to piggyback on Mr. Dodds. I think I heard you somewhere you say it was $12 million that the charitable foundation had. Is that the first amount?
Approximately 10 million so
10
far.
million.
Yes, sir, approximately 10 million.
So I'm trying to get into what in theory they may not have received, but what is intended to them. It sounds like, is that about a 20 million that I hear, did I add up?
Yeah, the numbers I give you, of course, are flexible numbers, because it requires both agreement by HCA and by the foundation to do what's called joint written instructions to take money out of the indemnification escrow.
Okay.
It's my opinion, being intimately familiar with what's happening there, is that right now, as we sit here today, there's $20.7 million in the JP Morgan indemnity escrow account. I believe that most, if not all of that, most of that money will be conveyed to the charitable foundation on or before the 7th
And
anniversary.
is that in addition to the 10 they have?
Yes,
So that, call it roughly $37 million, is that correct then?
no, 30 million.
30
Because
million.
20.7
Okay,
plus 10 is 30.7.
okay, so roughly $30 million to the charitable foundation, potentially. That's outside of all of the conversations we've had today.
Yes,
And I think that's where sometimes, again, reading stuff, I have to tell you, I'm just as confused too. When I'm
please let me
thinking.
be your source of information.
So a lot of the concerns of money getting to the charitable foundation are outside, you're saying, of this conversation and this particular arrangement you are asking of the school board.
Yes, you will have no obligations or responsibilities with the charitable foundation unless you decide you want them. And then on the terms that you want them.
Board members, is there any other questions that you have, or?
So let's put this together for us.
I think we have to, as a body, we have to decide what we're doing from this point. So that's where I'm turning to you to say, I mean, this is not a motion, this is
I need time.
direction.
I need
Well, I
time.
think what we want to do right now is just maybe to have the paperwork so that we can take a look at it. If we get a CD upstairs, we'll just come and take a look at it. And
I'll
then-
get a printed, I'll get a printed copy, that's what was requested to have at least.
Okay.
I'll have a printed, I'll make a printed copy and have it upstairs, and also I'll have it on a CD.
Yeah, and then we can maybe give you some direction after we have a chance to take a look at some of this paperwork.
Are you telling me you don't want me to do anything, or do you want me to go ahead and start with?
May I make a comment? I would ask you to, I'm asking you at your school board meeting today to authorize due diligence only of Mr. Bradshaw and your staff. I would also ask that you bifurcate, or that you separate out his legal fees, and that he bill you, and that the memo line be Citrus County Hospital Board due diligence, and then that be submitted by the school board to our office, and we will be happy to pay those costs. So I don't want it to be, it's a $0 cost to the school board. So whatever you contemplate on doing, I hope that you do that, is authorize only the due diligence, and allow Mr. Bradshaw to bill you separately for that, knowing that the Citrus County Hospital Board will reimburse the Citrus County School Board for Mr. Bradshaw's time and wage.
I think, and just correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we can take action on an item today that's not on the agenda. So we don't, so we would need to put, what your request is, we need to put on a subsequent agenda and give an opportunity for public input before we could do that. Am I correct, Mr. Bradshaw, on that?
Yeah, it's not on the agenda, but I mean, I can go ahead and start looking at things.
Okay. Is that, board members, is that where you're at? Mr. Dodd, I see, I want to,
Yeah,
I don't want to not give you an opportunity to have conversation.
I thought, so we're not gonna make a resolution then, but Mr. Bradshaw's, we're gonna,
Well, I think what Mr. Grant was talking about is when we get to the point, like if you're not on board, we'll know, and if you are on board, I think he was wanting some type of a resolution for us to work together to move forward to seeing if it can be accomplished in the legislature and make sure all of the i's are dotted and t's are crossed.
right, but for your work, if you're gonna do work now, is that gonna be paid by our board, or is that gonna be paid by the hospital board, I guess?
No, it will be paid by the school board, and the school board would simply, I don't want to have a conflict under rules that he and I operate. You would pay him, he's your lawyer. Submit it to us, we will reimburse you for Mr. Bradshaw's time and money.
And so there's no issue with that without us having a resolution, I mean, it's just to be consistent.
We will want eventually a resolution.
Right.
Let me tell you why. If, even up to the very last day, everybody can say no. But I want to make sure that you authorize this, because what I'm going to do is then I'm going to go to Senator Simpson and I'm going to go to Representative Masulo. And I'm going to say, okay, they're interested, we're beginning, it's just to update them. And I'm going to get other lawyers involved to give more ideas on how to make this happen and how to craft bills and negotiate the deal. That's all. But you are not bound, even by a resolution. The resolution surely show this is only a preliminary due diligence. All final decisions are made at another joint
The
time.
resolution would come in a public meeting for y'all to adopt it, a resolution basically saying we want to move forward. on all
Right.
this. I think it's just information and fact gathering right now.
Go ahead.
Because I'm not quite there yet on the
Right.
resolution.
I don't think we're not.
Okay.
I need more time.
Right,
I said that.
right.
And that's what I think I'm trying, that's what I'm trying to make sure that I give this board the opportunity.
What I anticipate is once you get a copy of this agreement and all of the other information, I need to have started my review on that, because if you have questions, you're gonna call me, and I can't sit there and say, I haven't read it, I haven't done anything, I can't answer your question, so I need to start moving forward with that. The same way you're gonna start moving forward with it. If at some point in time you decide we don't wanna move forward with it, then it's dead in the water. If it is something that you wanna move forward, after you get enough sufficient facts to make your mind up, then we'll talk to Mr. Grant about a resolution, that can come back in front of the board. You're not taking any action today on whether you do or do not. This is all just a conversation at this point in time.
And as far as the legality of it, you said that, I mean, this is gonna have to take a legislative bill. Is that what you're thinking right
At
now?
a minimum, I'm saying that I would want as part, yes, I know like for them to voluntarily dissolve and to have it.
We're gonna run a bill anyway.
They have to do that, so there's certain things that I'm already thinking of that I would want in that bill for the school board's protection.
Do we know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And just for future, we wouldn't have, like, you just said you solved all these lawsuits, or they will be solved by 2021. How subject are we gonna be when this bill comes that we are gonna be sued as the caretaker landlord of the land and the investments of the board? Anybody can be sued, I know.
Anybody can be sued, and but what I need to do is I need to look at the agreement
Yeah.
and I will give you my opinion
Okay.
on that at a later date. I can't do it today without starting to
Right,
take a look at
I
these
understand that.
agreements.
Just one of the considerations I want to
We,
look
we require insurance policies and the whole gig.
If
And
I
we're
could-
we're indemnified.
If I could promise people that they would never be sued,
Oh, yeah.
I would be retired by now.
Yes.
If I can draft stuff.
We're running out of time, but I did have a question. So we talked about early on, Citrus County School Board in Citrus County is the largest landholder and property holder, I believe, in the county.
That's what, yes.
Are we currently the largest leaseholder probably as well because of our leasing corp? Potentially?
Potentially, yes, because of the bond issue.
Eh, I think that's typical for most school districts around the state within each of their respective communities.
To do the bond?
To be, yeah, but I mean, to be the largest landholder, the largest.
Yeah, I would say that,
So,
that is the norm.
Because of that, my question is just, is a version of this happening anywhere? Not necessarily a hospital board, but are there entities where the school district owns a property that they're leasing to another entity?
Yeah, well, yes, I mean, I know that there are school districts that lease property to charter schools because,
Okay.
you know, they have to do that, which is, I don't think is similar to what's going on.
'Cause that's still within, I think, the typical
But my
mission of our
understanding is that
business.
The property, we're
Right.
the property of the Citrus County School Board, and we just have it leased to someone else, so yes, there are.
I just didn't know if the school district, either had properties and then they leased it to another entity that used it for a different purpose.
And I believe under SREF, you can lease, you're allowed to lease properties.
Yeah, and that was because I know decommissioned schools and things of that nature have been the case, and that's why I wasn't sure. And I think that's, to me, part of that due diligence. That's very hard as a board to say, I don't even know how to quite move forward with doing due diligence before we have a due diligence for the due diligence. Is that, am I wrong, board, in that?
You're right on target.
And I have
Okay.
a list of things that, you know, that I will check.
So the other time then is this board, would you like to have a workshop before we get to that next stage of having a resolution? So that we have another conversation, open conversation, where we have this kind of thing with more information? Or do you want to first have Mr. Bradshaw come back and give us a report and then we go from there?
Second.
Okay. Are we,
Yeah, good.
so that's what I think that we're looking for, is that you'll do that, you'll provide us with the information, and then you can get back with us with a report, and we'll take things from there.
Would that be a public meeting?
Oh, we only can do
No, I'm
it.
sorry, when you say back with you, mean individually, or is there gonna be another?
Oh, no, I'm assuming in a meeting, at the end of his meetings, he always has a wrap-up, legal wrap-up.
That would be.
Yep, 'cause-
It'll either be, either we'll do it at a workshop, because we tend to have more time during the day, or I'll do it at the end of a regular meeting. And it'll be on the agenda, you know, instead of just attorney legal matters. Underneath that, we'll also put in there. And I would also, I'll get with Ms. Himmel on when that would be.
Yeah.
It's gonna take some time, okay, and to go through all of this. So I'll catch up with Ms. Himmel, and I would also encourage y'all to, you know, as always, call me with any questions that you have about, you know, I might not be able to answer this stuff off the top of my head, but, you know, it's certainly things that I would appreciate input and concerns that you have to address prior to coming back to another meeting.
And I think what Thomas said is that we owe it to the public to examine this as carefully as we
Absolutely.
can, and see if there should be a partnership.
Absolutely. And I will not have a problem telling you that I have a problem.
You never have before.
So now,
I just might say thank you very much. Citrus County is jet setters. We are the only county in the state of Florida that has a private jail. We are only one of 3 counties that ever had a fire department run by the county. So, but I can tell you that I know that other large school districts do in fact lease property.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Yes, thank
Ms.
you all
Ressler.
very, very, very
We
much.
appreciate it. We're going to adjourn our work, I'm sorry?
I just want to remind you, you don't have another workshop in March.
Yes, we do that. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mullin. We are going to go ahead then and adjourn our workshop at 3:05. And then for purposes of being able to have the room private, because we're going to be having a hearing, we'll reconvene at 3:10 for the hearing. And with that, our workshop's adjourned.